later in Albertville as one of the favorites in both the 500 and 1,000, he fails again, finishing fourth in the 500 and a disastrous 26th in the 1,000. Jensen's left skate slips. Hundredths of a second have been lost on this turn. Before the afternoon is over, 7 racers skate faster.
It was good to have Jane there because she brought us all back to reality. And whenever we started feeling real sorry for ourselves, she would do something to make us all think, well, this is what it's all about.
Something was off. My skates, they weren't gripping the ice. I didn't feel solid, and my legs didn't feel normal. So I'm just thinking, all right, in a minute and a half, you're done, and your Olympics will be over. And I was sort of prepared that it just wasn't going to happen.
The race gets underway. Jansen gets away quickly. At 200 meters, Jansen is second fastest of all the previous skaters. At 600 meters, Jansen is now faster than all the previous skaters. A slight slip on the next to last turn. Robin Jansen fears this will again cost him the race. There are 200 meters to go. Jansen creates a world record, 11 hundredths of a second faster than Kevin Scott of Canada's former mark.
Think of anything I could do to say something to Jane, and then right as it ended, I just thought, just give a little salute. So I looked up and saluted her. I remember I actually told Jane that I was going to win for her.
One of the many great Olympic stories, and a very touching one. Dear friends and colleagues, welcome back. I suggest that we turn back to point 5 of the agenda. This is Olympic Agenda 2020. You have heard there the reports yesterday about the new form of organizing the Games with all the potentials for savings. We have heard gender equality and other reports. And now we are continuing today these reports. The first one, Mr. De Kepper, going to be?
It's going to be Yanis on the Olympic channel.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Mr. Honorary President, dear members. 18 months ago, we launched the Olympic Channel according to our plans to make this, in an effort to make this, in years, the largest sports social community in the world. I would like to give you today a short update of where we are on the different areas of operation. We do not have time for too many details, but I would like to give you a brief overview of where we are today. So those are some key figures. 1.2 billion video views across all social media. You will soon be listening very often to some new terms that are being introduced in the media industry about how the penetration of media is measured. You will hear the term TAR, total audience rating, and the far better sounding TAM, total audience measurement. Those are measurements and ways of measuring that try to aggregate all performance of media across all different platforms. Because by definition today, modern media is multi-platform. It's not just the old linear television. So this figure here, the 1.2, shows the total number of videos that have actually been consumed across social media platforms produced by the Olympic Channel. This doesn't even account for videos shown and consumed on the linear platforms that we already operate in the United States, in Middle East, North Africa, and in Europe, and hopefully in many other territories of the world. Part of this success is driven by the third number, which is 9,500 individual pieces of content that the team has produced during those last 2 years. It is really a very significant figure. It covers all sports, not just Olympic, but beyond Olympic sports. It covers competition and athletes from all countries of the world. And this diversity and volume of content is really what has brought us those results. We have, as we speak, a total number of 6.9 million followers across the different social media platforms that we activate the channel. And as I have said a few times, for me, the most important rating, the most important indicator is the percentage of young people that follow what we do. In the previous presentation, the percentage of people below the age of 35 that were following the Olympic channel was 77%. As the channel grows, actually this figure grows, and this is a very healthy indicator. 82% of the people who follow our content are below the age of 35, which is the reason why we created the channel in the first place, to embrace the young generation. I would like to apologize to some of us. I think His Royal Highness made a question yesterday, how can he access our feeds? It is true that our feeds are far more accessible to the young generation that are so keen to use mobile phones, tablets, PCs, and so on, but I can assure you that our feeds are widely accessible also for all generations and all demographics across the world. We have so far broadcast on our platform more than 900 different live sports events. And we have agreements and cooperation, active cooperation, with 63 international sports federations. Obviously, it's more than the Olympic federations. During the last month, our central focus has been the Games of Pyeongchang. We wanted to support the Games, the effort of the Games to acquire international recognition. So we started a number of initiatives in terms of original programming that has to do with the athletes of the Games, with the sports of the Games, with Pyeongchang itself. We have introduced many new functions in our platform, which are of purely digital nature, many infographics, simple games, interactive solutions, a 3D interactive torch, and so on. And we have recently started also a dedicated campaign for the channel, which is centered around the Games of Pyeongchang that we call Go Beyond the Snow and Ice, to highlight that the channel is there primarily to show what goes on behind the scenes of sports, how all those great athletes prepare, how do they achieve what they achieve, how is their daily life, how do they reach this incredible level of performances that we watch during the Games. During the Games, we are doing with the channel what we call a platform takeover. If you go now to the Olympic channel, everything that you will see is about the Games of Pyeongchang from several different angles. First of all, on the platform, we promote in every different region of the world the transmission of the Games from our local broadcasting partner. So you will see there, you can find the schedule of the Games, you can find information about the Games, you can find information about the preparation of the athletes, and you can find also a call to go and watch the Games in our partner broadcaster, adding value to this relationship that we have with our rights holders. We have also created a number of digital solutions like widgets that carry the results of the Games that broadcasters can easily embed on their own digital assets. During the games, we have crews here, we have dedicated people who produce a lot of content behind the scenes. They cover press conferences, interviews. They will do a lot of stories for Pyeongchang and Korea. They have already started doing. And we will also try to engage with a number of athletes in creating stories that will be destined primarily for the social media. I'm also very happy to say that the channel will enable the Olympic movement to have the Games of Pyeongchang as the first truly worldwide covered Winter Games in history. As of this morning, we have created a special destination for a number of countries that before didn't really have a coverage of the Winter Games. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Nepal. They're not countries that are very much into the Winter Games, but I'm sure that those 1.7 billion people can have the same worth for what the Olympics represent and what our values are. So the channel will play a very important strategic role in ensuring that every single corner of the world will be able to access the Winter Olympic Games of Pyeongchang. Looking ahead to 2018, we will take a number of initiatives. I'll just highlight three. First of all, the intense introduction of new technologies like virtual reality. Now we also have a top partner with the IOC, Intel. We have the capability to produce a lot of content on VR and provide a completely new approach and experience in terms of understanding sports. This morning, Mr. Wertheim has presented the innovative games, youth games of Buenos Aires. We want to do the same on broadcast. The channel will be the rights holder, will be showcasing the games in many territories around the world. But also we want to use this opportunity to make the coverage of those games very special, to make it in a way that's closer to the younger generation. We want to test a number of things, like the use of VR, the use of drones, the use of cameras that are close or with the athletes themselves. We do have this capability in the youth games. It would be a pity not to try it. So for us, the youth games are the games of innovation, and this is what we will try to do with the channel. Last but not least, at the end of the games, we will launch our premium set of documentaries, which are called 5-ring films. Those are films of cinematic quality. I'm sure that they will do a pretty good career around the film festivals in the world, all focused on important moments in sport, and all directed by famous directors from around the world. Great directors, great film directors who also have a passion for sports. The producer of this series is Frank Marshall, one of the greatest producers of Hollywood, with films from Spielberg and so on. And also, he was a member of USOC. He has a passion for sport that cannot be matched by anything. And he warmed to the idea of really being the creative mind behind this effort. Maybe I would like Timo to give you a brief overview of where we are in terms of our commercial distribution and the partnerships that we build around the world.
Thank you, Yanis. Very quickly, good afternoon. Firstly, Prince Tunku Imran, I only gave you a partial answer yesterday, but I can tell you that if you have your mobile phone and you have the Olympic Channel app, with 3 clicks, you can get onto watching live TV output on that. You just press on the app, you press on the TV icon, and you'll see there's actually a picture which shows there's an esports competition going on, and you click on that picture and it will take you there live. So that's for the sort of complicated digital piece. In terms of distribution generally, what we're trying to do is to go where people are on media platforms, and those could be any sorts of media platforms. Of course, there are the digital platforms, whether they be social media or, for example, connected devices of any sort. And so we are in the process of building agreements with a lot of these players in order that we can get in front and put the channel or channel content and the channel brand in front of the consumers and the audience in these areas. What you see on the map is the third piece of our distribution leg, which is working with our broadcast rights holders. As Yanis mentioned, I talked about yesterday, and Yanis already mentioned the existing deals, but you can see there that there are many other places in the world where we're in the process of negotiating distribution and actually localization deals, because in each case when we go into a territory, we also try and have an element of localization. So a lot of these will be local content, locally relevant content in the local language as well. Then which one do I press? This one? Yeah. Then just a couple of words on the sponsor side. You've heard us talk in the past about some of the top partners who became founding partners of the channel. That is, they made an additional incremental investment to help the channel in the early days, and you see those four on the left there. We're now gradually moving towards, as we move towards the cycle of renewals of top agreements in the next couple of years, we will actually be integrating the channel into the overall top package. So you can see on the right-hand side there, those are the current partners that we are in the process of gradually beginning renewal discussions, and the current partner who joined us in June, Intel, where we're having very specific discussions as to how to integrate the channel into their top agreement. If you like, it's a little bit the agreement is in between the two stools, two positions that we have. Yanis.
And last but not least, I would like to remind you that the Olympic Channel assumed also the responsibility of building our data warehouse on behalf of the whole Olympic movement. We had all identified for a number of years now that data are super important for our future and for the value of sports. And we know that we are lagging behind in the effort of really creating a quality reference database for that. We do it during the Olympic Games, but we don't do it in between. So we started this project on behalf of the whole movement and for the use of the whole movement. The project is moving very, very well. We just actually contracted the technology partner that will assist us in the build-out. We have finished all the scoping and the design of this platform. By the time of Buenos Aires, we have the plan to test, to have a proof of concept, to test the concept that we have designed. And we are still on for our objective to deliver a functioning platform of data for all sports by the Games of Tokyo 2020. I would like to close with a short video. Maybe some of you have watched, and I think you have been entertained by a short video we had released a few months ago, the Baby Games. It became a viral video. It has had close to 60 million views around the world now. Tomorrow, we release the version of the Baby Games for the Winter Games.
The Baby Winter Games are back. So get ready, because we have an epic day of truly shocking moments, heartbreak, and triumph. First up, curling. Sweden versus Canada. Both teams throwing the rock extremely well, but who can handle the pressure? What a shot! Even he can't believe it. Now the Canadians. Oh no, what just happened? It looks like an equipment malfunction. Next up, alpine skiing. Italy can taste the victory. And they're off. Wow, that time is going to be hard to beat. Switzerland, not messing around here. Oh no, she catches an edge. This is heartbreaking. But wait, she is not done yet. That is called perseverance, folks, and the crowd absolutely loving it. Moving on to the two-toddler bobsled. The fearsome German sled is first. What poise! Everybody's enjoying this. Jamaica hoping for the big upset. One of the coolest runs I've seen all day. And they've done it. First ever gold for Jamaica. Now over to figure skating. such grace. Great Britain, jolly good show. I like where this is going. Nailed it. United States comes out strong. Look at those moves. Oh, the footwork is divine. What a finish. I'll be talking about this performance for years to come. But will the judges feel the same way? It's a perfect 10. I don't believe it. Last up, the always thrilling ski jump. Poland, no fear in his eyes. Starting his descent. Picking up speed. Yes. Yes. Yes! He's done it, bringing home gold for Poland. Watch all your favorite moments on the Olympic Channel, where the games never end.
Thank you. During the session, you have had long and very important and serious discussions, but I think it's worthwhile remembering that a basic component of sports is also fun. We should be free to embrace the fun of sports. This is what will bring the younger generations. I think my colleague Timo would like also to add something.
So I just omitted to say, please do look out for a significant announcement regarding India and the Indian subcontinent territories, which will come out later on this evening, also relating to the channel.
Thank you. Mr. President, we are happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Exarchos. Mr. Lumer, I think it's hard for you to beat the baby Olympics there, but you did your best. Are there questions? Christoph, can you? No, everybody's excited about the babies. So your tactics worked. No questions. Congratulations for a great first year of the channel, and a great success, and with a really promising new year with many new initiatives, what you showed us. So we are looking forward to more baby Olympics, but also to more successes of the channel. Thank you, Mr. Exarchos. Thank you, Mr. Lumer. Mr. De Kepper.
Yes, our second to last topic for the Olympic agenda is the Youth Olympic Games, which will be presented to you by our Vice President, Professor Hugo Erdener.
Mr. President, Mr. Honorary President, dear friends, I am pleased to report you on the progress made since we met in Lima. My report is briefly based on the 5 strategic goals adopted at the IOC session in Rio. And my report again includes 2 decisions submitted to your approval. Years for the next summer and winter Youth Olympic Games, and host selection process for the next summer Youth Olympic Games. As you remember, the first goal is to increase the participation and the level of competition for the young athletes at the yoke. Following the creation of the 2 distinct competition periods for Lausanne 2020, to allow high-level competition by more athletes without increasing the cost and complexity of the yoke, by reducing the number of competition days and period of stay for each athlete. A similar process will be undertaken for the next summer Youth Olympic Games. After Buenos Aires 2018, a revision and adaptation of the sports program and field of play requirements will be performed with all required partners. The selection of the number of events and athletes for each of the 2 competition periods should provide a consistent and relevant experience for all athletes and optimize venue use. The second goal is to enhance the role of yoga as an incubator for innovation. I can give you some few additional examples since Lima. In Buenos Aires, OBS will manage some IBC activities from Madrid for minimizing operational costs for the IOC and the organizing committee. Again, OBS will also implement a flexible coverage plan with roaming teams between venues and new light-type production technique, including drones. Finally, virtual reality content will be offered to broadcasters. For both Buenos Aires 2018 and Lausanne 2020, the athlete education program has been fully reviewed with a significant reduction in the number of activities while improving the quality and relevance to young elite athletes. 3 key issues have been retained, as Mrs. Lingwei Li mentioned in her report: protect the clean athlete, of course, athlete performance, and athlete beyond sport. Another yoga evolution, following requests, especially from the organizing committees, Buenos Aires and Lausanne emblems have been updated. Youth Olympic Games has replaced yoga DNA. We feel it is much clearer now because we had some different opinions, ideas, proposals from different NOCs concerning this subject, and also from the organizers. The third goal is to expand the reach and impact of the yoga. With the Olympic movement stakeholders, we are creating a network of youth sporting events. To build this network to offer a more relevant learning pathway to young elite athletes, we are leveraging on existing youth sporting events as pilot. These pilot projects will allow us to test some key elements, such as the athlete education program, the branding options, and collect stakeholder suggestions. We had 2 pilot projects in the last year, and we will have some in this year. Our aim is to reach 100,000 young elite athletes over a 4-year period by including in the yoga network all continental youth games, youth world championships, and their qualifying events in all the Olympic sports. The network could be expanded to national level or even virtual participation events and other multi-sport games addressing young athletes. The fourth strategic goal is to leverage on digital platforms to extend the yoga experience. This will be achieved by an early implementation of the IOC digital strategy, ensuring a coherent approach across all platforms of the IOC, the Olympic Channel, OBS, and Buenos Aires 2018. To inspire and engage young athletes and young fans worldwide, Buenos Aires 2018 will be present on all the IOC digital platforms, such as the Olympic Channel, retaining the yoga digital rights worldwide, will broadcast all contents produced by OBS, such as live events, young athlete stories, and unique contents developed for social media, the youth zone of the Athlete 365 website, the official IOC website, the YouTube yoga channel, the IOC social media accounts, which will feature specifically developed stories, pictures, and videos. In addition, Buenos Aires 2018 digital platform will address the local youth through a website and a mobile application, as our friend Mr. Wertheim mentioned this morning. The fifth and last objective is to bring the yoga to all types of cities. Future editions of the Youth Olympic Games will be more affordable and sustainable by adapting to the yoke the recommendations on the Olympic Games delivery, which was presented our friend John Coates yesterday, by our friend John Coates yesterday. It is also our wish to target potential yoke hosts. To achieve this, a new host selection process based on the two-phase approach adopted from the 2026 Olympic Winter Games process will be implemented. A dialogue phase to carry out feasibility studies and a candidature phase for the IOC session to select the host city. I would like to highlight that several NOCs have contacted the IOC during the past months to express their interest in hosting the next summer or winter Youth Olympic Games. The Executive Board decided a strong idea to the session: make the African continent a strong priority when it comes to the host selection for the next summer Youth Olympic Games. Without having any campaign or promotion, IOC will proactively approach a number of African NOCs to evaluate the feasibility of such a project. The objective is to elect the host city at the IOC 133rd session in October in Buenos Aires. As we know, Olympic Agenda 2020 Recommendation 25 advises to move the yoke to non-Olympic year. Since the yoke inception in 2007, Continental Youth Games and World Youth Championships have been created. Now the international and national calendars of youth sporting events are organized around the yoke. Following a wide consultation in the last year, many IFs and NOCs have commented that this change would impact them negatively. It appears that holding the yoke in a non-Olympic year will clash with the European Youth Olympic Festivals, as well as with Pan Am and African and European Continental Games, require significant modifications to the international youth and senior sport calendars and create issues to those involved in test events for the Olympic Games and Olympic Winter Games. The Yoke Steering Committee recommended to the IOC Executive Board that we need to change the year. The following two recommendations are now presented to you, our friends, for your approval, meaning targeting the African continent as a host for the next summer Youth Olympic Games with a proactive approach towards the NOCs and elect the host at the IOC session in Buenos Aires this year, and holding the fourth Summer Youth Olympic Games in 2022 and the fourth Winter Youth Olympic Games in 2024. There is a working group in our Olympic Games department, and especially for the feasibility study on holding the Youth Olympic Games in Africa. And Mr. President, if you allow me, I can give the floor to our Olympic Games Director, Christophe Duby, for some more explanation about our working group evaluation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hedner, you want to do this now or depending on the questions?
Maybe he can give us some short information.
Yes, with pleasure.
Christophe, please.
Mr. President, Dr. Erdner, yes, indeed, and I can be very short. There was indeed a request by the Executive Board to study the opportunity to host the YOG on the African continent. And it was very timely that the request was made by the IOC member in Senegal, Mamoun Ndiaye, to Christophe de Kepper to visit Senegal and judge the feasibility study. We have sent Gilbert Fely along with one of our staff members from the Games Department, Mathieu Pourret, and they've looked thoroughly into 4 of the key dimensions if we want to host an event like the YOG. First, the support from the sport movement and the local authorities. Second, the sport venues. Third, the accommodation. And fourth, the general infrastructure. I'll be very brief on the support from the NOC and the authorities. It was up to the highest level. The Prime Minister was involved in the conversation. The Sport Minister as well, the NOC, the President of the NOC and a number of national federations, and they all overwhelmingly supported the hosting of the YOG in Senegal. Then Gilbert and Mathieu went to visit a number of sport venues, and here it's green light on every front. There are a number of existing excellent venues, a number of others that are currently being renovated, so we can feel very confident that every sport could be hosted. Accommodation, especially accommodation for the athletes, is also very reassuring. There are numerous university campuses in Dakar and around Dakar with a growth of about 3,000 beds a year until 2021. So here as well we have ample capacity and hotel rooms we could find as well. And finally, when it comes to general infrastructures, airport, road system, transportation, there as well, they were very impressed with the situation, the way it is unfolding. So the conclusion from Gilbert and Mathieu was that the YOG could be hosted in Dakar and the adjacent cities. It was indeed a very positive report. A special thanks to Mr. Ndiaye for your support and making all this happen in a very short time and having the opportunity to meet up to the highest level of the government. So, Mr. Ndiaye, thank you so much for your help.
Thank you very much, Christophe. Dear friends, much progress has been achieved since Lima, and I would like to thank our members of the steering committee for their really important contributions. Mrs. Gunilla Lindberg, Mrs. Stanka Bartekova, Mrs. Sarah Lewis, and Mr. Andrew Ryan. And of course, I thank our Olympic Games department, especially Christophe Duby and our friend Antoine Götze for their great efforts. Mr. President, it concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Erdener, for this very professional report. Can we have the last slide so that I can follow? Because I would like maybe also the Q&A to divide in 2 parts. If we could first speak about the date for the next years, whether you have any questions there. To come back to the old term, or whether we can just agree with this term. So, are there questions with regard to the dates for the next YOG there? I don't see a question. Can we then approve this? Who is in favor? Please raise your hands. Thank you. Against? Abstentions? Then this is approved. Thank you very much, Professor Erdener. Now we are coming to the other point, and this is the selection of the host city for the YOG 2022, as you have decided now. And there, in fact, the EB would like to give a special priority to the African continent. You know very well that Africa is the home of many very successful and prominent athletes. You also know that the African continent is a continent of youth. And you also know that Africa has never organized neither Olympic Games nor Youth Olympic Games. So to quote from a famous song, the IOC EB really thinks that it's time for Africa. Therefore, the EB is making this proposal, and if you would approve this proposal, we would then evaluate the feasibility of such a project with different national Olympic committees in Africa, but not starting a bidding procedure. You have anyway changed already. Professor Erdner explained this already very well, changed the procedure to elect hosts for Youth Olympic Games. But to make it very clear, we do not want an African NOC having to spend money on a campaign. We would do more or less the same than we have done with Senegal, and there thank you once again, Monsieur Ndaye, for your initiative and your interest. So we would do the same with a number of other African NOCs, approach them, send an expert team, and then come to a proposal which then, according to the regulations you have passed there in Rio 2016, will then be put forward to the session. So this is the idea of the executive board and the proposal, and now I open the floor for questions. Sheikh Ahmed Al-Sabah.
Thank you, Mr. President, dear colleague. Thank you, President Kul. I believe this is an excellent idea, Mr. President. Africa deserves to host some multi-sport event. Youth game is a good game, multi-sport game, which can be held in many cities. I am sure that Senegal is capable, and there is other NOC. We cannot say only DECA, but there is another IOC, as the President has been mentioned. We will wait for the AB in the next session in Buenos Aires to give, if there is more than one candidate with this procedure, which will make the games not costly, reasonable, and it will help Africa to host some multi-sport game. And this is, of course, will make a lot of development and progress to our friend in Africa. For that, Mr. President, this point was one of the point which is not in Agenda 2020, delayed for a while, but I think now with this new proposal, we are completing the Agenda 2020 to have a good solution for the youth game. I hope the House will support the idea, and thank you, Chairman, and all your colleagues in the Commission. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Ahmed Al-Sabah. I have Mr. Baumann.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to add my voice of support to the proposal. I have had the honor of campaigning, and I think that the Youth Olympic Games are an excellent tool for the Olympic movement and for the IOC to promote our values, to promote talents, to promote new regions, to organize sports structures in new regions. And I think that as a general principle, that this is a proactive approach by the IOC rather than a campaign from NOCs. I think that that is, as a general principle, a very good one to follow, not just for this edition, but potentially also for the others. And of course, nothing to add to what our friend Sheikh Al-Sabah said. It is certainly time for Africa as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baumann. His Royal Highness, Prince Faisal Al Hussein.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Roland, on the presentation. I'd also like to add the support to my colleagues that I think it is a great time to allow the African continent the opportunity to host an Olympic event. My question, I guess, is more technical. In view of the fact that you've got no campaigning and promotion, is it going to be that in September we're going to be presented with one city that has been nominated, or will there be a choice made by the members of the IOC? I just want to understand what the mechanism, so when we arrive in Buenos Aires, we know what is expected from us, and do we have the appropriate information to make that judgment? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Prince Faisal. Madame El Moutawakel.
Mr. President, I too would like to express my joy at last seeing such a project being implemented on a continent which has been for so long on the margin of our Olympic movement. This continent, which has produced so many great champions, be able to benefit from such an event. This is going to be a great glimmer of hope for Africa. I support this project. Initially, the idea of Youth Olympic Games was for the smaller countries, countries that could not host either the Winter or the Summer Games, that could perhaps not even host a session, which is so costly an event to organize. But the Youth Olympic Games on the African continent is a magnificent project, and certainly a wonderful dream for some nations to implement and for peoples to hope for. So thank you very much to you, Mr. President of the Executive Board, for taking up this idea. Thank you.
Thank you, President. I'd like also to first express my deepest gratitude and honor to hear that we do have hope in Africa to host the Youth Olympic Games. It's the far and most difficult continent to reach in terms of having live experiences. We've had our own continental games hosting, I mean, every 4 years, every 2 years in the nations and in the continents. But our youth has been hoping and always dreaming to have the world come to Africa and experience the African nation. People and the youth are hungry to receive the world and to also experience and share the welcomeness of the continent and the nations in a way that we as Africans are capable of hosting the games, regardless of the level and the context of it. But the African way, this is the greatest hope to hear in my lifetime. So yes, there are many countries that would like to host, and supporting it is like a dream coming true. So, and it's a pleasure to hear also our colleagues in the IOC have the faith and belief for African nation to host the games. So I just wanted to echo my support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Behane. Are there other comments or questions? Mr. Pengili.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Professor Erdner. I think this is a great idea, both in outcome as well as process. So well done to the EB. Just, I guess, one question. Should circumstances change over the next 6 months, what would be the... And that feasibility became an issue for us, what would be the kind of backup plan, I suppose?
Thank you, Mr. Pengili. Are there other questions? Monsieur Morario, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, President. I wanted to congratulate you and members of the EB for this choice. I think that this is something that is absolutely extraordinary for our African colleagues. It's a continent which we should be focusing on. I've got a technical question. Will the same process also apply to the choice of the Youth Winter Games?
Merci, Monsieur Morario.
Thank you, Mr. Morario.
Garadali.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, President.
Je remercie le comité.
I'd also like to thank the Executive Board and Mr. Nguy in particular for having had the courage to present Africa to organize the first Youth Olympic Games in Senegal. Apart from the Games, though, I would like just to insist on the fact that it is often the Africans who have to come to Europe or to Asia. Now, I think it's up to the Asians and the Europeans, as well as the Americans, to discover Africa. So it really will be a win-win situation in terms of education, in terms of culture. Everybody will win by organizing or allowing us to organize this. And I'd just like to congratulate the EB to give us these games. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Garadali.
Thank you, Mrs. Garadali.
Mr. Gumel.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. First of all, let me congratulate the EB for this brilliant idea. It's very exciting to us with Africans. I believe it is time for us now that Africa should host the Youth Olympic Games. I want to congratulate my colleague from Senegal, and I want to assure the EB and my colleagues that I believe before the time comes, with this opening, many Africans, NOC, are likely going to indicate interest. So idea is good. Like what my other colleagues said, it is high time now that the Europe, the Asians and the Americans should now come and discover Africa. And I believe when the time comes, it is going to be a great event. So congratulations for a job well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gumel, for your kind words. Mr. Paul Tergat.
Mr. President, thank you very much for this opportunity. Personally, I want to say that as a former athlete or as a gold medalist, this is a great idea which has come. Its time has come. Coming from Africa, I think all of us that my colleagues have actually spoken before me, it is the best idea that if by tomorrow Africa will be waking up hearing this, then all of us as most of members of IOC from Africa, we want to make sure this thing become a reality. We've been waiting for this, and having the support of IOC executive and most of our members, we will make sure that this thing become a reality. Thank you again for having that faith in us, and we are going to make sure that this will become a reality.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tergat. Mrs. Beatrice Ellen.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I just want to add my voice to what my colleagues have said. It's a good initiative, and we want to thank the EB for coming up with this initiative. Being a Gambian, I can tell you that Senegal is a highly sophisticated country, and I am sure they can do it. They have a rich culture, and we will all be proud as members of the Olympic movement if these games are taken to Senegal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ellen. Are there further comments? No. Then, Professor Erdner, would you like to answer the questions, please?
Thank you, President. First of all, I would like to thank all our friends for their support, great support for this idea. I also have to say the same thing. It is this time for Africa, as our president mentioned. I would like to answer some few questions related to Prince Faisal's question. As our president also mentioned, in any case, in the new system, there is a dialogue phase, and our team will sit together with NOCs and discuss some possibilities face to face, and then we move on the candidature phase. In the beginning, in any case, we have a working group still is working about this subject, and in the new system again, new games delivery and reducing our cost policy. There is no need any campaign or promotion in the first stage. But when we decide the host city, of course, if organizer wants, they can arrange some promotion in favor of Youth Olympic Games, in favor of our athletes and our organization. There is no doubt about it. Related to
Professor Erner, sorry. May I just like to clarify, because the question of Prince Faisal was whether there will be one candidate or two or three candidates at the end. We cannot tell. This will depend on this thorough evaluation of this feasibility study. If there should be more candidates on an equal standard, then of course they will be put forward to the session. Should, however, there be a bigger difference, then it may be only one candidate, which then would be proposed to the session. And in the ideal world, then this one candidate would even be supported by the rest of Africa as the African host.
Mr. President, my answer was related to just specifically
yeah, I know.
present situation. And related to our friend Mr. Morario's question, of course, door is open for the same way for Winter Olympic Games. If we have a potential candidate, there is no doubt about it. We as the IOC, as the Olympic movement, I think altogether we are ready for another candidature from Africa. Regarding Adam Pengeli's question, yes, good question. Thank you, Adam. And as I mentioned, a working group still focus on this subject. And now, as Christoph mentioned, this project seems really feasible. And on the other hand, it was related to for another question. Time is enough for the preparation for both phases, and everything will be ready before the next IOC session, which will be held in Buenos Aires. Calendar is also seems very convenient. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Erdener. Are there any more questions? No. Can I then ask whether the session agrees that it's time for Africa? Then please raise to respect our governance, who thinks it's time for Africa, please raise your hands. Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Congratulations, Africa. It's your time. Thank you very much. And thank you, Professor Erdner, for an excellent report, and congratulations to this result of the vote. Mr. De Kepper.
The last topic is the Olympics in Action Forum, which will be presented by our new Strategic Communication Director, Ms. Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. De Kepper. Thank you, President, dear members, dear colleagues. It's a great pleasure of mine to bring you an update on the Olympism in Action Forum. But first, I'd like to take a moment to thank my colleagues, because as you well know, this effort has been underway since it was born out of the Olympic Agenda 2020. And it's been a labor of love for the administration for a while now, even before I arrived. So in particular, I'd like to thank Marie Selwa, who handed me the baton of leadership for this great endeavor. And now on to the rest of the slides. So first, let me give you a sense of the program and how it's shaping up. As you know, it'll take part the first 2 days before the YOG, and we're looking for a mix of sessions. So we have big plenary discussions, and then we have side workshops where we'll have working zones in parallel, and we'll have some interesting types of dialogues too, maybe some nightcap sessions with special guest stars. One thing to point out on this schedule is that we're looking to bring together a number of the award ceremonies that happen at different times of the year. We're hoping that by bringing them to this event, we'll be able to give it a little lift and give some big recognition to those people that we like to highlight with awards. And of course, the 2 days culminate in the opening ceremony of the YOG. So the overall themes and topics will well fit into the themes of Olympic Agenda 2020, credibility, sustainability, and youth. But we're looking to focus the conversations that take place in the 2 days to timely topics and conversations that are more public-facing and engaging for a diverse audience. So yesterday you received a handout that gives you some detail about the program, and you'll see that what we'd like to discuss will tackle some key topics, like how can we better protect clean athletes and the integrity of sport? Or why should a city host the Olympic Games? And how can we fight corruption in sport? What will the future of sport look like? And how can sport be used as a tool to empower young people? We're making great progress in recruiting speakers, and we're really going for diverse perspectives and a balance of backgrounds, gender, geography, expertise. And as the president promised, this is going to be a lively conversation, so you'll see some provocative speakers as well, such as Mr. Zimbalist and Mr. Dempsey, who were the authors of No Boston Olympics. We're really hoping that this will be a lively and inclusive conversation, and we're happy to have folks like Phumzile Mlambo Nusuka, who is the head of UN Women, and someone who's probably familiar to many of you, Maria Torpakai, who's a squash player from Pakistan and also a Women in Sport Commission member. As youth is a focus of Olympic Agenda 2020, it is also a focus of the Olympism in Action Forum. But even in addition to the topic of youth, we're hoping that youth will play an active role in the program. So you'll see we have a variety of roles that are scoped out for our young change makers to conduct workshops on their efforts and pass their knowledge along to others who may want to use their programs in their own communities. We'll have them obviously as speakers, but also rapporteurs. After a discussion has taken place, they'll be able to give their perspective on the topic. Because we want the session to be as interactive as possible, we will try a variety of formats. But to bring this to life a little bit for you, consider that in the previous page you would have seen we have some Olympians from the refugee team. Well, we may want to give our audience a little bit more of a flavor of what it's like to live in a refugee camp. So we can use virtual reality to take them on a visit to a refugee camp and help them see what the role of sport is like in the daily life there. And then, of course, we can have the plenary discussion, but we hope this will make it more interactive and more engaging. We are looking to have 2,000 join us in this conversation. And as you envisioned, this was going to be a very public-facing conversation. You'll see we reflect that in the composition of our audience. So of course, we want all of you to join us. And we want the Olympic movement to be a big part of this discussion, as we want the folks who are coming to YOG to participate as well. But we are really hoping to have 30% of the audience be external. So I'd like your help, if you're willing to extend and reach out into your networks and think about the folks you would like to be involved in a conversation about the role of sport in society, and help us bring in those outside voices to this conversation. We have a great venue, and I have to thank our collaborators at BEOCOG and our great events team, because this is a brand new venue in Buenos Aires, and so we'll be one of the first to use it. It's a very flexible space, so we'll be able to have interesting dynamic setups inside, but also use the outdoor space to have some interactive displays. And there's a picture of sort of how you might envision the interior taking shape. This is by no means finalized, but it gives you a sense of how we can have big, all-inclusive discussions, but also maybe have little side discussions and debates in pockets of the room. Okay, before I leave this podium, I have to ask for your help. Because in March, we will begin promoting officially and formally the registration process for the audience. So we'll begin a big communications push. We'll have a website platform, or rather we'll be using our existing platforms and building out content there, and invite people to self-nominate and express their interest in attending. But we're not only going to be recruiting the audience, we're also going to use this time to begin the conversation about Olympism in action. And so I need your stories. I need maybe not just your personal stories, but the stories that inspire you and make you feel proud of this movement. Because you'll see one of my favorite stories there. We want to be able to package these stories and push them out socially. And so the more stories we have from different backgrounds, from different geographies, from different sectors of society, the more we'll be able to help on the road to the forum, give people a sense and appreciation for what Olympism in action really looks like. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Edwards. And now it's question time. Prince Tunku Imran.
Thank you, President. I just wanted just a little bit more information about how we can really get involved, because
Is the program finalised yet? And my reason for saying it is that we have two IOC commissions, that is the Sport and Active Society and the Education Commission, both of which are charged with promoting the philosophy of Olympism. who have a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom, which we would like to contribute to this program and in several ways. And I'd just like to think that opportunity still exists to do so and it's not closed off. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Meester. Are there more questions? No, I don't see any. Mrs. Edwards.
Okay. First, Mr. Amran, thank you already for your efforts to build and promote the event. Quickly, in the next couple of weeks, we'll be putting a package together for you with more specific details about how the Olympic family should get involved. Because as you rightly noticed, we're trying to reserve some space for non-typical folks to come and join the conversation. So we do want to make sure we're maintaining that balance. So shortly, I would say in the early March timeframe, we'll be giving out, before we go public with the event invitation, we'll be giving out materials to you so that we get you the answers to the logistics like participation and who should come and hotel and who's going to pay for things like that. Okay? Mr. Meister, to your question, no, it is not too late. And in fact, we have been working closely with Francis on some of the areas that you spoke about specifically. So we may come back to you with some ideas of how we'd like to bring education and sport for active society into the program, but we're happy to still take your feedback. We have time.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Edwards. If there are no further questions, then congratulations for the work being done so far and good luck for the rest. We are looking forward to an exciting and really lively, I hope, Olympism in Action Forum. Thank you, Mrs. Edwards.
Thank you, Becky. We come now to the conclusion and the summary of all the discussion on the Olympic agenda and the implementation. You have, as I said before, on your board packs, an updated version of the full midway report, which now lists also all the expected deliverables for each year. The document will be updated on a yearly basis. I will obviously not go into the details of the old document, but just will give you now the main expected objectives and deliverables for 2018. For the recommendation in relations with the Olympic Games, we will first have the rollout of the new candidature process for the Olympic Winter Games 2026, which follows the ongoing dialogue state, as Mr. Samaran had previously informed you about. We will, of course, continue with the implementation of the sustainability strategy and launch the implementation of the legacy approach that was presented by Prince Albert. We also are currently pursuing our discussions with the IPC on the long-form agreement that will support the MOU we signed last year. And of course, we'll take the opportunity to have the new IPC president and his team here in Pyeongchang to discuss further. As we did for the first time in Rio for the Summer Games, the analysis of the Pyeongchang program will be, for the first time for Winter Games, be made on an event level. And this analysis will support the finalization of the event program for the Olympic Winter Games 2022. Last but not least, as I mentioned in the beginning, we will start the implementation of the new Games delivery model, which will be a key outcome of the Olympic Games delivery optimization. Moving on to the other topics of the agenda, on the key area of the fight against doping, we will continue to support the implementation and the development of the independent testing authority. Dr. Valérie Forneron presented to you the latest development. The new athletes engagement strategy, Athletes 365, will be supported with the launch of a new platform, which will reflect and support this new strategy by offering an enhanced one-stop shop for the athletes. For Olympics in Action, as you know, in 2017, the activities which were under the former Public Affairs and Social Development through Sports departments were reallocated. It will lead to the development of new overall strategies that will be launched next year, both for Public Affairs and for Social Development through Sports. On the education side, to support the Olympic Value Indication Program, a network of ambassadors will be launched this year. Finally, the development of the Olympic Festival concept, as approved by the IOC Executive Board last year, is ongoing, and 3 pilot projects will take place during the Pyeongchang Games, 1 in Slovenia, 1 in France, and 1 in the Czech Republic, which was, with its very dynamic president, at the basis of this project. As a reminder, the aim of the Olympic Festival is to support the NOCs in making the Olympic Games accessible to local people, especially young people. Finally, also, we have launched the review of the YOC O-City selection process. On the culture side, we will have a smaller artist in residence program in Pyeongchang. This will be presented to you at the end of this session. The successful marketing seminars with NOCs delivered with the support of ENOC and Olympic Solidarity will continue, and another set of seminars are planned for 2018. To continue to support the use of the Olympic brand for non-commercial purposes, a number of new guidelines will be delivered, especially for IFs, Olympic cities, and the Olympic Museum Network. Last but not least, as presented to you by Becky, the first Olympics in Action Forum will take place before the Youth Olympic Games in October. President, dear members, this concludes the presentation of the implementation of Olympic Agenda 2020.
Thank you very much, Mr. De Kepper. Are there questions to these last remarks by Mr. De Kepper? I think he was pretty clear. So congratulations again, Mr. Kepper, and keep going with your administration at the same speed, at least. And now I suggest that we move on to point 10 of the agenda. This is members, and there I would like to invite Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal to present the report of the Members' Election Commission.
Thank you, President. Colleagues, as you'll be aware that in Lima you had quite a lot of work to do as a result of our deliberations last June. We haven't had another meeting, but there are 1 or 2 things to catch up on in terms of candidature and change of status, which you will be doing in a minute. And the athletes' candidatures, which of course, as you're well aware, doesn't happen until the end of the Games because they will have their own election at that stage. It was really for me to remind you that this is an ongoing process. And Stefan Helm made the point earlier that we are continually looking for new members, and we're continually looking for the right balance of new members, and that's both in gender and activity. But we do rely on you as members and your connections to put forward, particularly in terms of independent members for the Olympic movement, a range of individuals. The members that come through the NOCs and the IFs, and to some extent the athletes, are quite well catered for. But the independent area is an important one for us because it gives us more of a balance and a broader balance of membership, and I hope will give us the opportunity to bring in some more women through that particular route. So it is a plea to remind you all to think of those individuals that might fit this. To be honest, we probably can't have too many because one way or another they seem to sort of sort themselves out. But it is a process. You never quite know when you're going to need an awful lot more, particularly in certain areas of professional qualification and levels of interest and background. So that's a plea from the Commission to all bear that in mind. But otherwise, it is about coming up to date with the candidatures for IOC membership, Mr. President.
Yes, please.
So you have a candidate as IOC member from Czech Republic, Mr. Kaval, and 2 change of status for the IOC membership, which is in your book from Professor Erdner and Baron Pierre Olivier Brice, because of their time served in their various posts.
Thank you very much for this very precise explanation. You have also the CVs and every other material in your files. Are there questions at this stage to Her Royal Highness? No? Then, Royal Highness, thank you very much for the great work having been done by your Commission, which is not an easy one. And there we appreciate very much how this reform of our election procedure is working, thanks to your leadership. Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness. And now we can move forward with for some reasons I'm asked to start with a change of status. If somebody wants this like this, we can do it. Yeah, this is the change of status. Okay, somebody had an idea, I'm sure. So we are following and starting with 10.2. This is, sorry, Mr. Keval, your blood pressure may be rising, but we'll come to it. The proposal is to change the status of our Vice President, Professor Uwe Erdener, whose membership is at this moment linked to his function as the President of the International Federation World Archery. You have seen the reasons why we think it would be not only helpful, but it would be added value to the functioning and working of the IOC if he would be considered to be an individual member in the future, so that he can continue the many missions he has here in the IOC, like the one with the York and others, regardless of his function in the International Federation, and even more so that we do not have an individual member in Turkey, which, as you know, is an important country. Therefore, the EB is making this proposal, and I ask the Director General to start the voting procedure. Okay. In the meantime, while the voting boxes are distributed, I can also already introduce the second proposal, which concerns Baron Pierre-Olivier Pécresse-Vieux-Jean, whose membership is linked to his function as the NOC President of Belgium. But he is in his last term as NOC President, and we would, of course, like to have him continuing his task as a chair of the Coordination Commission 2024, regardless of his position as President of the NOC of Belgium. And furthermore, for Belgium, the same applies as for Turkey. We do not have an individual member there since our honorary president resigned at the time also from his membership, and these are the reasons why this proposal for change of status is proposed to the session. The scrutineers for these elections, there we have now tried to get back a little bit more to gender balance, because yesterday we had only women, which led to some complaints here in the room. Now, seriously speaking, Madame Howard right now has an important task in her capacity as the chair of the implementation group and cannot be with us. This is why the scrutineers will be chaired by Mr. Siam-Yang Eng, and the two other scrutineers will stay as they were, Mrs. Michaela Kochuango-Jaworski and Mrs. Kirsty Coventry. So now the scrutineers are here. Mr. De Kepper, we can start the procedure, please.
Thank you, President. We will begin with the vote on the change of status of our Vice President, Professor Ugo Erdener. Is there anyone who does not have a voting keypad and a smart card? So it seems that everyone has one. I suppose you are still familiar with the voting system, so we don't need to do another test. Or you want me to change? The subject matter of the vote is, do you accept to change the status of Professor Erdener from IOC member in his quality as president of an IF to the quality of an individual member? I will now request, is there a problem? Does everyone have a voting box? Yes? So somebody still needs his card. So here.
So I will.
Yes, can you take the president's voting box, please?
No, it's not for you, Franco.
Le président, tu dois prendre. So I'm asking again, everyone has his keypad and smart card. So if this is the case, I'm going to ask for the opening of the vote. The vote is now open.
Okay, we say yes.
Did everyone had the chance to vote? I'm about to declare the vote closed. The vote is now closed.
So they were right with this.
We will now continue with the vote for the change of status of Baron Pierre-Olivier Beckers, Vieux-Jean. The subject matter of the vote is, do you accept to change the status of Pierre-Olivier Beckers Vieux-Jean from IOC member in his capacity as NOC president to that of an individual member of the IOC? The name of the member who, in accordance with the Olympic Charter, cannot take part in this vote is Mr. Ingmar de Vos, who already rendered in his card. Does everyone have his keypad and voting box, voting smart card? Yes, this seems to be the case. Then I'm going to request the opening of the vote. The vote is open. Did everyone have the opportunity to vote? This seems to be the case. I'm going to declare the vote closed. The vote is closed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eng, and to our two scrutineers. I'm pleased to announce the results of these two elections. The change of status for Professor Ua Erdener to individual member, voting cards distributed 87, valid votes 82, abstentions 5, majority 42, yes 69, no 13. The status of Professor Ua Erdener has been changed to individual member. Congratulations, Mr. Erdener. For Baron Pierre-Olivier Beckers-Vieux-Jean, voting cards distributed 86, valid votes 84, abstentions 2, majority 43, yes 76, no 8. The status of Baron Pierre-Olivier Beckers-Vieux-Jean has been changed to individual member. Congratulations to both of you, and we are sure that you will continue your activity with the same determination and dynamism as in your old function. Thank you, and now we can move forward, and there everybody was right in the administration. I was wrong. It's exactly the right sequence because we had now 10.2 of the agenda. Now we are moving on to 10.3, which in fact is the election of a new IOC member. Here the proposal is Mr. Irgi Keval. You may remember that Mr. Keval was already proposed for the session in Lima, but could not be with us at the time in Lima. And we did not want to have the election in his absence. And now he is here with us, and therefore this proposal is now for you to vote on. You have all the material already since Lima in your documents. Mr. De Kepper.
Thank you, President. The candidature is for election to membership of the IOC as an individual member. The name of the candidate is Mr. Jiří Kešval, Czech Republic. And the subject matter of the vote is, do you accept to elect Mr. Jiří Kešval as a member of the IOC, pursuant to Rule 16 of the Charter as an individual member? Does everyone have a voting keypad and a smart card, including Mr. De Vos? You have it back. This seems to be the case. Then I'm going to request the opening of the vote. The vote is now open. Did everyone have the opportunity to vote? This seems to be the case. I'm going to declare the vote closed. The vote is closed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eng. This is the result of the vote for the election as IOC member of Mr. Irji Keval. Voting cards distributed 88. Valid votes 84. Abstentions 4. Majority 43. Yes 73. No 11. Mr. Irji Keval is elected member of the International Olympic Committee. Welcome, Mr. Keval. You will have the opportunity to take the oath right after. Wait, not yet. Not yet. We do not want you to participate already in the election of Vice President and EB members. So you will be sworn in right after. Therefore, we can now proceed to the election of one Vice President. Here, I can pass the floor directly to the Director General to proceed with the vote.
Yes, President, I remind you of the procedure which will apply to the vote for IOC Vice President and the member of the IOC Executive Board. Voting will be held by secret ballot. As usual, electronic voting equipment will be used. In order to be elected, the candidate must obtain the majority of the vote cast. The names of those members that cannot participate in the vote will be communicated to the session. Nationals from the country of the candidates cannot participate in the vote. Then, President, when the candidate is elected, it's working back. Oh. Yeah. When a candidate is elected, the President will announce the name of such elected person. The result of the elections will be recorded in the form of minutes by the scrutineers. We shall now begin with the election of one office for Vice President. I remind everyone that the two positions, that of the Vice President, but also of the member of the Executive Committee, is for a term of 4 years. So we start with the Vice President. We have only one candidate, namely Mr. Zaiqing Yu from China. The scrutineers are, as for the last vote, Mr. Eng, Ms. Coventry and Mrs. Jaworski. And I will now give, in accordance to the election for the Vice President, the names of the person that cannot participate in the vote is Mrs. Ling Wei Li and Ms. Yang Yang, both from China. You have returned your cards. Then does everyone still have his voting box and his smart card? While we are collecting the cards of Ms. Ling Wei Li and Mr. Yang Yang. So the subject matter of the vote is waiting that the cards are decommissioned. Do you accept that Mr. Zaiqing Yu, China, be elected as an IOC Vice President? I will now open the vote. The vote is open. Did everyone have the opportunity to vote? This seems to be the case. I'm going to declare the vote closed. The vote is closed.
The result for the election as IOC Vice President for Mr. Sai-Ching Yu, voting cards distributed 86, valid votes 85, abstentions 1, majority 43, yes 78, no 7. Mr. Sai-Ching Yu is re-elected Vice President of the International Olympic Committee. Congratulations. Sir? You want to say something?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My dear colleagues and friends, thank you very much for your support and trust. You trust me, I will do my best and never let you down. As always, I would like to continue to make the further efforts to work for the International Olympic Committee and its Olympic movement by organizing the Beijing Olympic Winter Games 2022. I will, together with all of you, try to do my best to deliver a success games, the Winter Olympic Games Beijing 2022. Thank you very much, President.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Yu. And to give you an idea about Chinese timing, Mr. Yu now has been re-elected for his second term. After this, he has to leave the executive board, but by having timed it with Chinese wisdom, he will be in 2022, when we have the Olympic Winter Games in Beijing, again be first vice president. I'm sure that this was not planned at all, and but it's a very good coincidence. Congratulations, Mr. Yu. And now we are moving on to the election of one member of the IOC Executive Board. As you know, Mr. C.K. Wu has stepped down from the IOC Executive Board, and he was on the Executive Board elected at the time with a view to represent the interests of the Olympic summer sports federations, and therefore following the tradition we have established, we would now have to elect another member who can represent the interests of the summer sports federations, and in the ideal case with the support of the summer sports federations. And in fact, here we have one candidate who is enjoying this support by his colleagues of the summer sports federations, and who has put his name forward for election. This is Mr. Nenad Lalovic, our friend and colleague IOC member, and at the same time the president of United World Wrestling. Mr. De Kepper, if you would please proceed with the vote.
Thank you, President. I just ask if everyone has his voting box and the smart card. Mr. Yang Yang and Ms. Ling Weili, you have your voting card back? Yes, that's good. I remind everyone that it is a mandate for 4 years for Mr. Lalovic, and he's the only candidate. The subject matter of the vote is: do you accept that Mr. Nenad Lalovic be elected as a member of the IOC Executive Board? I'm going to ask the opening of the vote. The vote is open.
John.
Mr. Coates. So. I keep the vote opened so that we can make the necessary changing on the box. So apparently Mr. Coates has been able to vote, yeah. So did everyone have the chance to vote? This seems to be the case. I'm going to close the vote. The vote is closed.
Thank you, Mr. Eng and your colleagues. The result of the election to the IOC Executive Board for Mr. Nenad Lalovic. Voting cards distributed 88. Valid votes 83. Abstentions 5. Majority 42. Yes 69. No 14. Mr. Nenad Lalovic is elected member of the IOC Executive Board. Congratulations. Congratulations, Mr. Lalovic, and welcome to the board. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Mr. Honorary President, colleagues, IOC members and EB members, I want to thank you for this election and say that I am humbled by the trust you have in me and my work. And not only today, I think that this mutual rebuild of trust started in 2013 in September. I also want to thank my fellows IF presidents for electing me within the ASOIF, and to thank the administration of ASOIF and its president for organizing those elections, and my competitors who were the first to congratulate me 2 weeks ago. It will be an honor for me to continue to serve the Olympic movement and the summer sports in these challenging times with the best of my ability. Thank you once again.
Thank you, and congratulations again, Mr. Lalovic. And now I invite Mr. Willy Kaltschmidt in his capacity as Chief of Protocol to start the ceremony of taking the oath and shaking hands with the IOC members, which we will do after. For Mr. Jiří Keval.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, would you please raise for the Olympic anthem and remain standing during the oath ceremony. The Olympic anthem, please. Thank you. Mr. Jirikan, would you please come to the left?
Granted the honor of becoming a member of the International Olympic Committee and declaring myself aware of my responsibilities in such a capacity, I undertake to serve the Olympic movement to the very best of my ability, to respect and ensure the respect of all the provisions of the Olympic Charter and the decisions of the International Olympic Committee, which I consider as not a subject to appeal on my part, to comply with the Code of Ethics, to keep myself free from any political or commercial influence and from any racial or religious consideration, to fight against all other forms of discrimination and to promote, in these circumstances, the interest of the International Olympic Committee and those of the Olympic movement. Just to say a few words, thank you very much. I feel also your votes as a big responsibility for me, and I'm very touched. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Please be seated. We will do the shake hands. Then when it comes to Mr. Kalschmidt, we will do the shake hands when it comes to the photo. And please, we will continue now with miscellaneous, and there we would like to make a presentation because as you may remember, with the Olympic Agenda 2020, we have created the program of artists in residence, and you may still remember the presentation of this program at the session in Rio. And we have here also, on a different scale, of course, again, these artists in residence project, and there I would like to invite our director of the Olympic Foundation for Culture and Patrimony, Monsieur Francis Gabet, to present to us the artists in residence for the Olympic Winter Games 2018 here in Pyeongchang. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and now the floor is for Mr. Gabet and for you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the IOC, as the President said, I will show you now the second program of Artists in Residence after Rio. Rio was a great success on the social media, for one. We had 44 million likes in the space of 3 weeks, which is tremendous. More than 300 articles in the written press, which usually don't often speak about or write about the Olympics, and also on some of the main cultural media as well. So this program of Artists in Residence artists in residence are broken down into two. We wanted to now focus more on Olympians. These young people, and I think we can say these young people here, there are at least 3 Olympic athletes, Olympians, and they'll say a little more about themselves in a minute. Before they get the floor, I would like to speak very briefly about the official film that we are making together with POCOG. The director is the young man, Sing-Jun Ji, and I apologize for my very poor Korean pronunciation. He is the director. He has a very political approach to the whole issue. It's based on a Korean poem, the first sentence of which is, "Flowers bloom on every border," which, of course, is very telling here. He's not with us today because he's working. He is filming just now. Then we have the second program of artists in residence. This is under the direction of Alexis Papas, who is an Olympic athlete. She was running in Rio and hopes to be in Tokyo. She's an actress, she's a video director and filmer, and she works together with Nick Crow, her colleague, who's an actor, comedian, producer in the States, very well known. Also well known on the social media because there's more than 1 million followers on Twitter, which isn't bad at all. And then Mr. Jeremy Thatcher, who is Alexis Papa's former friend and also a very gifted producer. Then you have the painters. You have Mr. Rob Brastock, who was a javelin athlete and a fencer. The other athlete is a fencer. So Alex is going to explain to us what they will be doing here in Pyongyang.
Thank you. My name is Alexis Pappas. I am a Greek American and I competed for Greece in the 2016 Olympics in Rio. That was my first Olympics and I am still training with eyes on 2020. I'm a writer, poet, actor, filmmaker, and this artist in residency is the culmination of both of my passions and all of my life's work so far. My project is a film project which tells the story of an athlete played by myself, based on my real experiences, and a volunteer played by Nick, who, as you can see, is outfitted in the volunteer uniform. I am also joined by my co-creator, Jeremy Thatcher, in the overalls. The story is about an athlete and a volunteer who become friends at a crossroad in both of their lives. It is inspired by my experience in Rio and also of being in the moment while here in Pyeongchang. We've already met so many athletes, including skiers, figure skaters, and curlers, and the games haven't even started yet. I wanted to thank you for having me here. I first was introduced to the Olympic Games by my father when I went to the 1996 Olympics when I was 6 years old in Atlanta. I watched a person run the marathon who later became my own Olympic coach. Of course, I didn't know that when I was 6 years old. I then competed in Rio and am now competing with eyes on Tokyo 2020. I was first an athlete, and now I'm an artist in residence. And seeing behind the curtains as an artist and seeing all of you, I can now understand the thought and effort and time that goes into putting together this amazing games. To me, I see that the Olympics really are a sandcastle. Sandcastle, where every grain of sand is important, even though you can't see them all. That's what makes the sandcastle so beautiful. Athletes like myself get to play in this sandcastle, and I wanted to thank all of you for building it. Thank you.
And now I will give the floor to Roald Brastock. Some media call him the Olympic Picasso. He will explain to you what this is about. And I must say that also this operation is made also in very close collaboration with the World Olympian Association, because now Roald has founded the cultural section of the World Olympian Association. So thank you to our friends also. Roald.
Thank you, Francis. I can't tell you what an honor it is to be here. My lifetime goal was to be an Olympic athlete. My lifetime dream was to be an Olympic artist. Last time I was in the Olympics happened to be 30 years ago, when I was a young 26-year-old in Seoul. And for me to come full circle, I can't sleep. I pinch myself. This is absolutely amazing. As Peter Kubersen said about the importance of being joyful, if I was any more joyful, I'll explode. So let me tell you about the program that we're going to do. Here we're going to do 16 paintings, and this is about collaboration, about communication, about unity, and about promoting the Olympic values through art, and specifically through like paint, through color. So what we're going to do is, going to be 16 paintings. The first 15, again, this is also about inclusion. We're going to do one painting a day, so we cover all the 15 sports. And usually one of these paintings is about 3 feet by 5 feet. I don't know what the metric is on that offhand. It'll take 15 days plus. So we're going to, I've set the clock ticking, so putting us under pressure because we're athletes. But again, I wanted this to be an opportunity where people, the athletes in the village can come in with fellow Olympian artists, myself, Jean Blaise and Lanny Barnes, who will be helping me, and basically create a platform where they can feel comfortable, be playful, be joyful, and just experience something a little bit different, something outside their comfort zone, and really kind of embrace Peter Kubersen's vision about taking part and doing your best. We may get some good artists, we may get some people that are uncomfortable. I think that's good. So the 16th painting is blue and basically inspired by the blue lines in the snow. And what we'll do with that is it's going to be worked on throughout the games that athletes can come in and just add a bit of color to it. And so again, to kind of encapsulate the unity in the family, myself, the other artists, and anyone that takes part in this, no one's going to sign the canvas. We're going to keep track of who's taking part, but really as a symbol of we're all equals. We're all there to take part, and it's not about a individual, it's about the individual, and specifically the Olympian and the Olympic movement. So thank you very much, and it's an honor to be here.
Thank you, Ron. And if you want to go and put your touch of color to the paintings, they are just located just in front of the main dining room in the village. Huh? Yeah. Voilà, so in Gangnam village, so if you want. So,
Ça termine la présentation?
Is that the end of the presentation?
Okay, then maybe I can at least say hello there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we have a photo?
Oui, oui, oui.
C'était bon, non, c'était m'exprimer. Is Greg somewhere?
Yeah, he's over there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
So now the question whether anybody has anything else under miscellaneous. No, obviously we have covered everything. Then the next meeting, will be on, or the session will continue on February 25th. Then with, in particular, the election of the new athletes members, whose election by their peers is underway in the Olympic villages. You also know that we have the tradition that at the end of the session, the Dean is giving a speech. Our Dean, Mr. Pound, has advised us in October last year already that he cannot be with us there at the end of the Games, but that for unavoidable reasons he has to leave already on the 23rd of February, and therefore he is asked to give his speech already today, even though the session has not finished, so don't take it as the end of the session, and please reappear on the 25th. Having said this, I give the floor to Mr. Pound.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As you say, it is my role as doyen to thank you for your conduct of this session, and I'm very pleased to do so. If I may begin with an observation regarding the forthcoming Games, the IOC should be very proud of its efforts to promote the participation of the two National Olympic Committees on the Korean Peninsula. There were many similarities with the situation in 1988, and the IOC has played an active and positive role in encouraging a peaceful outcome on both occasions. We have finally had an opportunity to catch up with the full background of the Russian doping situation, and that has been a mostly healthy discussion. It is certainly true that we need to learn from the many complications arising from that situation and to make whatever adjustments are required to improve our abilities to respond to attacks on our values. As you have noted, Mr. President, in relation to changing social and legal contexts, we will await with interest to see what proposals may be forthcoming. It is also encouraging to see that the Ethics Commission, under the leadership of His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, is acting in a vigorous manner regarding the discharge of its obligations and is focused on prevention of unethical conduct as well as enforcement in the event of such conduct. The report of the Audit Committee was particularly positive, especially with respect to the improvements in the internal control process under the direction of the Senior Financial Management headed by Lana Haddad. Confidence in that process, as Chairman Beckers has noted, made it possible for the external auditors to complete their 2017 year-end audit in the month of January 2018, something that would have been impossible, if not unthinkable until now. Congratulations to PwC as well. Good governance has its financial benefits as well, and I've encouraged Chairman Beckers to share some of that information on the occasion of his next report to the session. It is good to note, both on the part of the Executive Board generally and among the elements of the Gender Equality Report, the renewed focus on abuse and harassment, in which the IOC can play an important and leading role. The problem is obviously real, as well as not sufficiently acknowledged. Dealing with it is a vital matter of good governance within sport. As we all know, it is far better to find a way to prevent such conduct than to try to deal with the impact of it. It is reassuring to learn that preparations for these games and all the others in the pipeline are proceeding in good order. Eventual delivery of superb games is an essential element of the success of the Olympic movement. Like the athletes who participate in the games, careful preparation is necessary for first-class performance during the games. We can congratulate excellence in both performance on the field of play and in the delivery of the best opportunity to enable the Olympic athletes to perform under the best conditions and for the world to share wonderful Olympic experiences. My congratulations to the organizing committees and to our dedicated staff for making all of this possible. On the matter of our administration generally, on behalf of all of our colleagues, Mr. President, I express the thanks of the session for their extraordinary efforts, among others, to prepare the documentation we need to understand the extent of our activities and to ensure that travel and other arrangements in the complicated logistical environment of the Games work as effectively as possible. I hope you will request the Director General to pass on our compliments to the entire staff, some of whom we know, but many of whom we do not have the opportunity to meet in person. They should know, however, that without their commitment, we know the IOC would not be what it is today. Well, I know that you will be expressing your own gratitude to them at the eventual conclusion of the session on February 25th. I would nevertheless like, on behalf of all of our colleagues, to thank Angela Ruggiero, Adam Pengilly, and Yang Yang, who will be leaving the IOC at the end of these games. Each of them has proved to have been a superb member, and all are a credit to the whole concept of having active athlete members as full members of this organization. We will look forward to see who are selected as their successors, and those successors will have high standards to try to match. We look forward to the successful conclusion of the Pyeongchang Games and to our meeting in Buenos Aires later this year, and to yet another opportunity to congratulate you on leading a session of the IOC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pound, and now I wish you a pleasant evening. All of us, most successful Olympic Winter Games here in Pyeongchang, and I hope to see at least a majority of yours back on the 25th of February for the next part of the session. And now I hand over to Mr. De Kepper, who is giving some explanations about photo, I guess.
That's very easy. If you just can take your accreditation off, looks better for the picture, and we'll take the photo here in front of the session podium. Please come forward.
And the shake hands with.
And of course, we will have the shake hands with Mr. Kejwal during the photo session or right after.